There is a moment you have probably lived more than once. You are in a room, a meeting, a party, a conversation, and someone asks for your opinion or calls your name, and before a single word leaves your mouth, something inside you tightens. Not fear exactly. Something quieter and more stubborn than fear. A voice that says, "What if they think I'm wrong? What if I say it and they look at me like that?" So you hold back. You speak smaller than you mean to, or you say nothing at all. And later, alone, you replay the moment and you wonder, why couldn't I just say it? We have all been there. Every single one of us. The person who looks confident from the outside has that voice too. The executive in the corner office, the athlete on the field, the speaker on the stage, they all know what it is to stand at the edge of themselves and hesitate. What separates them is not the absence of that voice. It is what they have learned to do with it. And here is what that hesitation is costing you. Not just the moments you stay quiet. It is costing you the relationships you do not fully enter, the opportunities you do not reach for, the version of your life that waits on the other side of your own self-belief. Confidence is not a luxury. It is the foundation everything else is built on. But here is what I need you to know before we go any further. What you are about to hear is not about becoming someone else. It is about uncovering who you already are and finally giving yourself permission to live from that place. I know where you might be right now. Maybe you have carried a quiet dissatisfaction with yourself for years. Not dramatic, not paralyzing, but persistent. A low hum of feeling like you are operating at a fraction of what you are capable of. Maybe you have read the books, heard the advice, tried the affirmations, and still found yourself shrinking in the moments that matter most. I see you, and I want to say something clearly. The fact that you are here, that you press play, that you are still searching, that is not weakness. That is one of the most important things a person can do. This audiobook is going to take you through the 10 most essential truths about building genuine, lasting, unshakable confidence. Not the performed kind that collapses under pressure, but the kind that grows quietly inside you and changes how you move through every room, every relationship, and every challenge. By the time we reach the final chapter, you will understand where real confidence actually comes from, why everything you have tried before may have felt hollow, and exactly what to do, starting today, to build the real thing. I also want to be honest with you about what this audiobook is not. It is not a collection of tricks to fake confidence until you feel it. It is not about becoming louder, more aggressive, or more dominant. It is not about eliminating self-doubt or silencing the inner critic forever. Those promises are empty, and you deserve better than empty promises. What this is a journey inward before it is a journey outward. We're going to start at the root of the problem, move through the layers of belief and behavior that shape how you experience yourself, and end at a place that feels genuinely yours. Not borrowed, not performed, yours. So, let us begin. Together. Chapter 1. The Confidence Myth. Why everything you were taught is backwards. Picture a child, maybe 7 or 8 years old, who raises their hand in class without hesitation, who sings loudly in the school play, who runs toward challenges instead of away from them. No one taught that child to be confident. They simply had not yet learned to be afraid. Somewhere between that child and the person you are today, something shifted. And most of us spend our adult lives trying to get back to something we never lost. We just buried it. We have all absorbed the same cultural script about confidence. That it belongs to certain people, the bold ones, the attractive ones, the ones who were born with it. That the rest of us have to fake it until we make it. That if you just act confident long enough, one day it will suddenly become real. We have all tried some version of this. And most of us know, quietly, that it does not work, not at the level that actually matters. Here is what I have come to understand, and what decades of psychological research confirms. Confidence is not a personality trait. It is not something you either have or you do not. It is a skill, a set of practiced internal responses, and like every skill, it can be built deliberately. Carol Dweck, this Stanford psychologist who spent her career studying human potential, found that the single biggest predictor of whether someone grows is not their natural talent or their starting confidence level. It is whether they believe that growth is possible. That belief is the foundation, and you just demonstrated it by pressing play. Consider the story of Abraham Lincoln. Before he became the president who held a nation together through its darkest hour, Lincoln failed at business twice, lost 8 separate elections, suffered a nervous breakdown, and was told directly by people around him that he was not cut out for public life. By every external measure, he had no reason to be confident. And yet he kept running. He kept trying. He kept believing, not that he was already great, but that he could become what was needed. The confidence he carried into the White House was not inherited. It was forged in failure, one attempt at a time. The way this shows up in your life might look quieter than Lincoln's story, but it is just as real. Maybe you have been telling yourself that confidence is for other people, the ones who had better childhoods, better looks, better luck. Every time you repeat that story, you are choosing to close a door that is still wide open. The myth is that confidence is a destination. The truth is that it is a direction, a daily choice to move toward yourself instead of away. Here is the practice I want you to start today. It is called the Evidence Journal, and it is this simple. Tonight, before you sleep, write down 3 things you handled this week that were harder than they looked. Not achievements, not wins, just evidence that you showed up when something was difficult. 3 things. That is all. Because the brain that has been trained to catalog your failures needs to be re-educated to notice your resilience. And you cannot build confidence on a foundation you cannot see. Confidence is not who you were born to be. It is who you are deciding to become, one piece of honest evidence at a time. And what we are going to explore next goes even deeper, because before you can build something strong, you need to understand exactly what it is built on. Chapter 2. The Roots of Self-Doubt. Understanding where your inner critic came from. Think about the last time someone criticized you, not a gentle correction, but a real sting. Now notice something. How long did that criticism stay with you compared to a compliment from the same week? If you are like most people, the criticism is still vivid and the compliment is already fading. There is a reason for that, and understanding it is the first step to changing it. We all carry voices that are not originally our own. A parent who meant well, but criticized constantly. A teacher who made an example of you in front of the class. A moment of public embarrassment that replayed in your mind until it became a belief. We did not choose these voices. They were installed in us during our most impressionable years, when we were too young to evaluate their accuracy and too dependent to reject them. But now we are adults, and now we have a choice. Here is what I have come to understand about the inner critic. It was never your enemy. It was a protector, a part of you that learned early on that being criticized by others was painful and decided that criticizing yourself first would hurt less. The problem is that a protector installed in childhood does not update itself. It keeps running the same program: avoid rejection, stay small, do not try anything that could fail, long after you have outgrown the environment that created it. Brené Brown, the researcher whose decades of study on shame and vulnerability have helped millions of people, describes this beautifully when she talks about the stories we tell ourselves in the space between what happens and how we respond. The story is never neutral. And most of our stories are narrated by a voice that is still 7 years old. Think about Nelson Mandela. 27 years in a prison cell. Decades of a system designed not just to punish his body, but to dismantle his sense of self, to make him believe that he was worth less, that his voice mattered less, that his dignity was negotiable. And he emerged from Robben Island not diminished but deepened. He has spoken about the deliberate inner work he did during those years, choosing consciously which voice to feed. Not the voice of bitterness, not the voice of worthlessness the system wanted him to absorb. The voice that said, "I know who I am." In your daily life, the inner critic shows up in subtler ways. It is the voice that narrates your mistakes in real time, that tells you sounded stupid in the meeting, that you should not have said that people are judging you right now. It is the reason you rehearse conversations before they happen and replay them after. It is exhausting. And it is running on autopilot unless you consciously interrupt it. The practice for this chapter is called Name It to Tame It, a phrase used by the neuroscientist Daniel Siegel to describe the act of labeling an emotional experience to reduce its intensity. When you notice your inner critic firing, do not argue with it and do not obey it. Simply name it. Say quietly to yourself, "There is the critic again. That is the voice that learned fear. I hear it, and I am choosing not to obey it today." That one act of labeling creates a tiny but powerful space between the trigger and your response. And in that space, you get to decide. You are not your inner critic. You are the one who can choose whether to listen. And as we move forward, you're going to discover that the most unshakable confidence is not built in the absence of self-doubt. It is built in the practice of responding to it differently. Chapter 3. The body knows first. How physiology shapes your confidence. Before your mind decides whether you are confident, your body has already voted. You walk into a room and your shoulders drop, your eyes go to the floor, your voice gets quieter, and then your brain reads those signals and concludes, this must be a threatening situation. The body leads. The mind follows. Most people try to build confidence entirely from the neck up and then wonder why it never quite sticks. We have all felt it, the moment your body took over before your thoughts caught up. A handshake that felt firm, and suddenly you felt more capable. A posture you held in a difficult conversation that made you feel steadier than you expected. We know intuitively that the body and mind are connected. But most of us are not using that connection consciously, and we are leaving one of the most powerful tools for confidence completely untapped. Here is what the research confirms about this connection. Amy Cuddy, the Harvard social psychologist who spent years studying how body language shapes self-perception, found that posture affects not just how others see us, but how we see ourselves. The positions we hold with our bodies change our hormone levels, specifically the balance of cortisol and testosterone, which directly influences how confident, alert, and capable we feel. Her insight is this: the body is not a passive carrier of the mind. It is an active shaper of it. What you do with your physical self sends direct signals to your brain about what kind of person you are and what kind of moment this is. Consider Michael Jordan, widely regarded as the greatest basketball player to ever live. People remember his athletic ability, but those who knew him closely speak about something else: the way he physically inhabited space. Even on days when shots were not falling and the game was going wrong, he never allowed his body to communicate defeat. He understood something that science would later confirm, that how you carry yourself in the hard moments determines whether your mind follows you into recovery or collapses into doubt. He chose his body language deliberately, especially when it was hardest. In your daily life, this looks like specific, ordinary moments. The way you sit in a meeting where you feel out of your depth. the way you stand when you are making a phone call you are nervous about, the way you breathe in the 30 seconds before you walk into something difficult. You are sending yourself messages in every one of those moments. Most people send messages of smallness without realizing it, and then wonder why they feel small. The tool for this chapter is what I call the 3-second reset, and you can use it anywhere, anytime in the next 10 minutes if you need it. The moment you notice anxiety or self-doubt rising in your body, before you speak, before you act, do 3 things. Roll your shoulders back once. Take 1 slow breath that expands your chest. And lift your chin to a neutral position. 3 seconds. That is all it takes to interrupt the physical pattern of collapse and send your brain a different message. Practice it now. Practice it before hard conversations, before important meetings, before moments that matter. Your body will begin to expect confidence, and your mind will follow. The way you hold yourself is a message you send your own brain 1,000 times a day. Start sending a different one. And if that idea is already shifting something in you, drop a comment right now and tell me, what is the one situation where you notice your body shrinking most? I read every comment, and your answer might shape the next audiobook we create together. Chapter 4, The Identity Gap. Who you think you are is holding you back. There is a version of you that exists only in your head. Not the you that shows up, the you that you believe yourself to be. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The gap between those 2 versions is running your life. Every choice you make, every risk you take or avoid, every relationship you enter or exit, they are all filtered through a story you are telling yourself about who you are and what you deserve. We all carry an identity that was largely given to us before we were old enough to choose it. The quiet one, the responsible one, the one who is not good with people, the one who is not smart enough, the one who always struggles with money. We took those labels from the people around us, from our earliest experiences of success and failure, and we built a self-concept around them. And then, without realizing it, we started living inside those labels as if they were permanent facts. Here is what I have come to understand about identity. It is not a fact. It is a story. And like every story, it can be rewritten, not through denial or positive thinking alone, but through deliberate, repeated action that contradicts the old narrative. Stephen Covey, whose work on principle-centered living has guided millions of people, wrote that we see the world not as it is, but as we are. The confidence you feel in any situation is almost entirely a reflection of the story you are telling about who you are in that situation. And until that story changes, your behavior cannot change in any sustainable way. Think about Oprah Winfrey. Born into poverty in rural Mississippi, she experienced abuse and loss before she was a teenager, was told early in her career that she was not right for television. Too emotional, too heavy, too much. The external world gave her every reason to write a small story about herself. And she chose a different one, not because she had no doubt. She has spoken openly about the fear and insecurity that followed her for years. But she chose every day to act from the larger story, the one that said her voice had value, that her experience was a gift, that she was capable of more than anyone had yet seen. In your daily life, the identity gap shows up as the invisible ceiling you bump against every time you try to grow. You try to be more assertive, but something pulls you back. You commit to a new habit, but after a few days it collapses. You step towards something that excites you, and then talk yourself out of it. This is not laziness or weakness. This is your identity doing its job, keeping you consistent with who you believe yourself to be. Until the belief changes, the behavior cannot hold. The practice here is identity declaration, and it works like this. Write down 3 statements that begin with the words, I am becoming. Not I am. That may feel like a lie right now. I am becoming. I am becoming someone who speaks their truth clearly. I am becoming someone who takes risks from a place of strength. I am becoming someone who trusts their own judgment. Read them every morning and every night. The brain updates identity through repetition. You are not lying to yourself. You are giving yourself a new direction to grow toward. Your identity is not your history. It is your decision. And the most courageous thing you can do today is decide to tell a bigger story about who you are. Chapter 5: The Courage to be Seen, Vulnerability and Authentic Confidence. There is someone in your life right now who seems effortlessly confident, someone whose ease in social situations, whose comfort with speaking their truth, whose apparent lack of worry about what people think makes them look almost untouchable. And I want to tell you something about that person. They are not fearless. They are not without insecurity. What they have, and what most people mistake for confidence, is a willingness to be seen anyway. That willingness is not a personality trait. It is a practice. We live in a world that rewards performance. The curated life, the polished image, the answer that sounds good. We have all learned in different ways that showing too much of ourselves is dangerous, that vulnerability invites judgment, and judgment hurts. So we armor up. We present the version of ourselves most likely to be accepted, and we hide the parts most likely to be rejected. And then we wonder why we feel so profoundly disconnected even when we are surrounded by people. Brené Brown spent more than 2 decades studying the relationship between vulnerability and human connection, and what she found is both simple and radical. You cannot selectively numb emotion. When you armor yourself against the risk of being rejected, you also armor yourself against the possibility of being truly seen. And being truly seen is the only thing that produces real belonging. Confidence, she found, is not about being bulletproof. It is about being willing to show up without armor and still believe you are worth knowing. That belief, unearned by anyone else's approval, is the beating heart of authentic confidence. Consider the writer Maya Angelou. She is one of the most celebrated voices of the 20th century, but for years, long years, into her adult life, she was almost entirely silent. Not shy, silent. After experiencing profound trauma as a child, she stopped speaking altogether for 5 years. When her voice returned, it came back not as a performance, but as truth. Everything she wrote, everything she said, carried the weight of someone who had decided that her story was worth telling even when the world had given her reasons to believe otherwise. Her confidence was not the absence of wound. It was the decision to speak from within the wound. In your daily life, the invitation to vulnerability comes in quiet forms. The moment you could share an honest opinion instead of the safe one. The moment you could admit you do not know instead of pretending. The moment you could tell someone what you actually need instead of performing independence. These are not small moments. They are the moments where real confidence is built or surrendered. The practice is simple, but not easy. This week, choose one conversation, just one, where you say something true that you would normally hold back. Not dramatically, not as a confession, just one honest thing that reflects who you actually are rather than who you think they want you to be. Notice what happens when you say it. Notice that you survive. Notice that the sky does not fall. That survival is the foundation of authentic confidence, the lived experience that you can be real and still be okay. Armor keeps you safe from rejection, but it also keeps you safe from connection. And a life lived behind armor is a life the world never quite gets to know. The next layer of this journey asks you to take that armor one step further. into the stories you tell yourself when no one is watching. Chapter 6: The Inner Dialogue. Rewiring the voice in your head. There is a conversation happening inside you right now that you did not choose to start and have not chosen to stop. A running commentary on everything you do, everything you fail at, everything you are not yet. For most people, this inner voice is their harshest critic, more brutal than anyone in their outer world would ever dare to be. And the strangest part is this: we treat that voice as if it is telling the truth. We all talk to ourselves constantly. Research suggests the average person has somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day, and for most of us, the majority of those thoughts are repetitive and negative. We have all caught ourselves mid-spiral, replaying an embarrassing moment from 5 years ago, pre-suffering a conversation that has not happened yet, narrating our own inadequacy in real time. This is not a personal failing. This is the default setting of an untrained mind. And the key word is untrained, because training is exactly what changes it. Here is what I have come to understand about inner dialogue. The brain does not distinguish well between what you imagine vividly and what you actually experience. When you repeatedly tell yourself a story, "I am not good enough, I always mess this up, people like me do not get to have that," your brain treats that story as data and begins to organize your perceptions and behaviors around it. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who developed logotherapy from within the walls of a concentration camp, understood this at the deepest possible level. He wrote about the one freedom no external force could take: the freedom to choose your response to any given circumstance. That includes the circumstance of your own thoughts. Think about Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, military commander, one of the most powerful people in the ancient world, who wrote privately in his journal every night for decades. He was not journaling for an audience. He was training his mind. He wrote to himself, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind, not the things that happen to you. The things you think about." He was deliberately, systematically rewiring his inner dialogue toward truth, toward strength, toward what was actually within his control. Those private pages became one of the most widely read philosophical texts in history, and their power comes entirely from the fact that they were a man talking to himself with radical honesty. In your daily life, the inner dialogue shapes every moment. The way you talk to yourself the morning of a difficult day. The story you tell yourself when something does not go as planned. The quality of the voice in your head when you look in the mirror. You are not at the mercy of that voice. You are its author, even if you forgot that somewhere along the way. Here is the practice. For the next 7 days, every time you notice your inner critic firing, you're going to do one specific thing. You are going to respond to it the way you would respond to a close friend who is speaking that way about themselves. Not with toxic positivity. Not by telling yourself everything is fine when it is not. But with the same honest, warm, proportionate pushback you would offer someone you love. Catch the voice. Name it. Then ask, would I say this to someone I cared about? If not, rewrite it. Out loud if you have to. Your inner world is your most important project. Tend it accordingly. If what you are hearing is already shifting something inside you, subscribe to this channel right now and hit the notification bell, because the next audiobook goes even deeper into how to master your emotional triggers and reclaim your inner peace. You do not want to miss it. Chapter 7: The Comparison Trap. Breaking free from other people's benchmarks. Open your phone right now, and within 60 seconds, you will have access to the curated highlight reel of thousands of people living lives that look, at first glance, more accomplished, more beautiful, and more certain than yours. This did not exist 20 years ago. And yet we have somehow allowed it to become the primary lens through which we measure our own worth. We are comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's best performance, and then being surprised when we come up short. The comparison trap is as old as human civilization, but never has it been so relentlessly available, so perfectly designed to exploit our deepest insecurities. We have all fallen in it. The scrolling that starts as curiosity and ends as a quiet erosion of your own sense of worth. The way someone else's success can make you feel not inspired, but somehow diminished. The voice that says, "Why not me?" And then, more dangerously, "Clearly not me." Here is what I have come to understand about comparison. It almost always measures the wrong things. Theodore Roosevelt famously said that comparison is the thief of joy, and he was right, but I think the reason runs even deeper than joy. Comparison is the thief of direction. When you are constantly measuring yourself against someone else's trajectory, you lose the ability to hear your own. You cannot navigate by someone else's compass and expect to arrive at your own destination. Daniel Goleman, whose groundbreaking work on emotional intelligence transformed how we understand human performance, identified self-awareness as the foundational competency, the one everything else is built on. You cannot be self-aware while you are busy being other-aware. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history and a man who has had every reason to be defined by competition, has spoken simply and directly about this. He measures success by whether the people he loves actually love him back. Not by market performance, not by comparison to other billionaires, not by what the world says his net worth makes him worth as a human being. He chose an internal yardstick early and has held it for his entire life. That is not a small thing. In a world that is constantly offering you external measurements, choosing your own is an act of profound confidence. In your daily life, comparison shows up constantly. The colleague who got the promotion, the friend who seems to have a perfect relationship, the person online whose business looks effortless. Every one of these comparisons is stealing attention from the only trajectory that actually matters, yours. Not because you do not deserve to be inspired by others, but because inspiration and comparison are different things. One lifts you toward your potential. The other measures you against someone else's. Here is the practice. Choose one area of your life where comparison is currently draining you, and for the next 30 days, replace your external benchmark with an internal one. Define what progress means to you in that area, not compared to anyone else, just compared to who you were 1 month ago. Track only that. When comparison thoughts arise, and they will, gently redirect, I am running my own race. That single shift, practiced consistently, will return your energy to where it can actually do something. When you stop measuring yourself by someone else's ruler, you discover that you have been growing all along. And the territory we are moving into next is where that growth becomes something you can actually feel, not just believe. Chapter 8. The Courage to Fail Forward. How Failure Builds Unshakable Confidence. Think of the thing you most want to do, but have not yet started, or started and abandoned. The business idea, the creative project, the conversation you have been putting off, the health change you have committed to 17 times. Now be honest with yourself. What is the real reason it has not happened? In most cases, when you dig down past the excuses, the timing is not right, the resources are not there, I need to learn more first, what you find is this: the fear of failing at something that matters. We have been taught, in almost every institution and relationship we have ever known, that failure is evidence of inadequacy, that getting it wrong means you are wrong, that the goal is to succeed and anything short of that is a verdict on your worth. We have absorbed this message so thoroughly that most of us would rather not try than try and be visibly wrong. We choose the safety of potential over the risk of real, and then wonder why our lives feel smaller than they should. Here is what I have come to understand about failure. It is not the opposite of confidence. It is one of its primary ingredients. Every person who has ever built something real has a relationship with failure that looks nothing like avoidance. Michael Jordan, cut from his high school basketball team, who then went on to become arguably the greatest player in the history of the sport, built his entire philosophy around this truth. He has said publicly that he has missed more than 9,000 shots in his career, lost almost 300 games, been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. He did not hide from those failures. He fed them back into his practice. He built the confidence that changed basketball not in spite of failure, but through it, one attempt at a time. In your daily life, failing forward means making the size of your attempts bigger than the size of your fear. It means trying things you are not yet good at in environments where the cost of failure is low, and letting the accumulated evidence of surviving those failures build a new belief. I can handle this. I have handled harder. The brain does not build confidence from being told you are capable. It builds confidence from the direct experience of attempting, failing, adjusting, and continuing. There is no shortcut through that process, but there is a way to make it intentional. The practice here is what I call minimum viable courage, and it works like this. Choose one thing this week that you have been avoiding because of fear of failure. Make it smaller than you think it needs to be, not easier, just smaller. One email sent to someone who intimidates you. One paragraph of the project you have been too afraid to start. One conversation initiated. Do it imperfectly, on purpose. And then notice, you are still here. The world did not end. In fact, something small but real happened. You chose courage over comfort, and your brain filed that as evidence of who you are becoming. Every failure you walk through with your integrity intact adds a brick to the foundation of your confidence. And as we enter the final stretch of this journey, we're going to talk about how to sustain that confidence, not just build it, through every season of your life. Chapter 9, The Environment of Confidence. Who you surround yourself with matters. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not the ones you admire from a distance. The ones who are actually in your daily life. Your conversations, your messages, your meals, your quietest moments. Now consider this honestly. When you leave those people, do you feel more capable, more alive, more like the person you're trying to become, or slightly less? Because the answer to that question may be the most honest diagnostic of your current environment that you will ever receive. We underestimate the power of our environment because it operates below our conscious awareness. We do not notice it happening, the slow adjustment of our ambitions, our beliefs, our standards, until one day we look up and realize we have been shaped by something we never consciously chose. The people around us set the emotional temperature of our lives. And you cannot build an unshakable inner world while you are constantly swimming in water that is pulling you down. Here is what I have come to understand about the social environment and confidence. It is not just support that matters, it is permission. The people around you give you a sense of what is possible, what is acceptable, what someone like you gets to want and try and become. Jim Rohn, the business philosopher and mentor to some of the most successful people of the last 50 years, said it simply and permanently. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. He did not mean this as a judgment. He meant it as a map. Because once you understand that your environment is actively shaping you whether you realize it or not, you become empowered to choose it more deliberately. Consider Viktor Frankl, who survived 4 Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz. In the most toxic, degrading, dehumanizing environment imaginable, he made a study of what allowed certain prisoners to maintain their sense of self and dignity while others collapsed. What he found was not random. Those who survived with their humanity intact had found, even in those conditions, small communities of meaning, other prisoners who reminded them of who they were. They could not choose their physical environment, but they chose their relational one within the constraints they had. And it saved their lives. In your daily life, this might mean having a difficult conversation about the energy someone brings into your world. It might mean actively seeking out people who are further along the path you want to walk, not to compare, but to expand your sense of what is possible. It might mean protecting your quiet hours from voices, online or offline, that consistently leave you feeling smaller. You are not required to justify this. You are allowed to curate your environment in service of who you are becoming. The practice here is a simple audit. Write down the names of the people you interact with most regularly. For each one, write one honest word that describes how you tend to feel after spending time with them. Look at the pattern. This is not about cutting people off or being ruthless. It is about being conscious. Once you can see the pattern, you can make intentional choices about where you invest your relational energy and who you allow to help shape your belief in yourself. If this audiobook is adding real value to your life, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with one person who needs to hear this today. You might not realize it, but that one share could genuinely change someone's life. The final chapter of this journey brings everything together, and it is the one I have been building toward from the very first word. Chapter 10, The Closing Truth, the person you are already becoming. Do you remember the room from the very beginning of this journey? The moment where someone called your name or asked for your voice, and something inside you tightened, where the words wanted to come and something quieter and older held them back. I want you to return to that room now, not as the person who walked in at the start of this audiobook, but as the person who has just walked through 10 chapters of honest, deep, sometimes uncomfortable truth about who you are and what you are capable of. That room has not changed. The people in it have not changed, but you have. Here is what we have walked through together. You learned that confidence is not a trait but a skill, not inherited, but built, one deliberate act at a time. You discovered where your inner critic came from and why naming it matters more than defeating it. You found that the body votes on confidence before the mind does, and that 3 seconds of intentional posture can change the message you send yourself. You uncovered the identity gap, the distance between who you believe yourself to be and who you are choosing to become, and you gave yourself a new story to grow into. You explored the counterintuitive truth that vulnerability is not the enemy of confidence, but its most reliable source. You learned to audit the voice in your head and respond to it with the same compassion you would offer someone you love. You freed yourself from the comparison trap and reclaimed your own internal compass. You made peace with failure as a building material rather than a verdict. And you looked honestly at the people in your life and asked whether your environment is building you or quietly eroding you. I need to be honest with you about something before we close. This journey is not linear. There will be weeks where the inner critic is louder than the new voice you are building. There will be days when the old identity pulls harder than the new one. There will be moments in rooms very much like the one we started in where you tighten again and shrink again and leave wondering why it did not go differently. That is not failure. That is how change actually moves, not in a straight line upward, but in a spiral that keeps returning you to the same challenges with slightly more of yourself to bring. So, let these be the principles you return to on the hard days. Confidence is built, not born, and every attempt adds a brick. Your inner critic is a protector, not a prophet. It can be heard without being obeyed. The body leads the mind. Hold yourself like someone worth knowing. You are not your history. You are the story you are choosing to tell from here. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the only door to real connection and lasting belonging. Failure is not a verdict. It is the curriculum. Here is the person you are in the process of becoming. You're someone who walks into difficult rooms and stays in them, not because the fear is gone, but because you have learned that you are larger than the fear. You speak when it matters, even when your voice is not quite steady. You try things that could fail, and when they do, you file the experience as data instead of evidence of your inadequacy. You choose your environment with care, your inner dialogue with intention, and your identity with deliberate, growing conviction. You are not perfect. You are not without doubt. But you are someone who has decided, quietly, firmly, permanently, that your own voice deserves to take up space in the world. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Here is the closing truth that I want you to carry from this audiobook and into every room, every relationship, and every moment that asks something of you. Confidence is not the reward you receive after you have proven yourself enough. It is the decision, made fresh every single day, to show up as yourself before the world has confirmed that you are worth it. The world will often confirm it after, but you have to show up first. If this audiobook gave you something real, subscribe to this channel and stay on this journey with me. The next audiobook goes even deeper into how to stop seeking validation and find lasting peace within yourself, and it will change the way you see every relationship in your life. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And until next time, keep growing, keep choosing, keep becoming.